watoto wamechaguliwa waende mashule ambayo walikuwa wana apply ili waitwe.
Top performing Kisumu school left out of Form 1 selection. What happened?
Kama nikumfungua mfungue, then kama nikuchangiwa kitu achangiwe tujue venye atafanya. Lakini sasa kuweka mtu hivi kusaidia nini?
Mimi sijamuroga hata sijui uroge nini.
Drama as residents demand that a woman sets free a man she allegedly bewitched.
Board resolves that requisite resources should be allocated to the county government in line with the constitution.
Devolution war of words between Cord and Jubilee. And slum areas get a head start with revolutionary mobile learning technology.
KTN Weekend Prime with Yvonne Okwara.
A very good evening to you this 18th day of January 2014. It is a rainy evening here in Nairobi. We are coming to you live from the Standard Group Center right here in Nairobi. Welcome to our bulletin tonight, and we will be focusing on the crisis in South Sudan, even as tonight we get news that the government forces have recaptured the town of Bor. Not only that, we're hearing news of a ceasefire agreement that has been agreed to by both sides. And tonight we have an exclusive interview with Rebecca Garang. You may remember her as the widow of Dr. John Garang, who fought for the freedom and independence of South Sudan. She is the advisor to the president on matters of gender and human rights. And we will be discussing the crisis in South Sudan. What is going on? Is there a ceasefire agreement? And has the dream of Dr. John Garang been fulfilled or not? And what will it take to get South Sudan back on the path of recovery? That exclusive interview tonight with Rebecca Garang is coming up in our interview, in our bulletin tonight. So do stay tuned. And in case you've got any questions, any views regarding what is happening in South Sudan, remember Kenya, did help put together the ceasefire, the comprehensive peace agreement. And so, of course, a lot of Kenyans taking interest in what is taking place in South Sudan. Any questions you've got, any comments you've got regarding this discussion that we will have, tweet them to me at Yvonne Okwara at KTN Kenya. You can also send me an SMS. The number is 22155. But first, let's get to today's top stories first. And let's start off with news from Kisumu County, where parents and pupils of Kibos Primary School are in shock after their school was left out of the Form 1 selection process, despite having some of the top students in last year's KCPE examinations. The parents say they waited for letters from the just concluded process, only to learn that the public school was not listed as a result of a computer error. Catherine Omondo reports.
Trophimus Oyo Ochieng, the best performing boy in Kibos Primary School, clings on to the only proof of his achievements in last year's Kenya Certificate of Primary Education examinations. He scored 396 marks and expected to be called to a national school.
I was given this trophy by the governor, but it seems pointless since I have no school that I'm going to admitted. I wanted to be a neurosurgeon, but the government has cut short my dream.
Trophimus fell well into the bracket of those candidates who qualified to go to national schools in the first phase of the Form 1 selection process.
Alama ya chini kabisa ile tulishukua ya umma ni 360 na ya shule za academy ni 375.
Because of an apparent technical error, Trophimus never received a letter of admission to any national school, and his mother Yvonne Okwara is worried.
Sasa sahi tunaambiwa hakuna kodi ya shule ili mtoto kuwe selected ajoin national school. Tulikuwa tunawanda ni kwa nini hii inatokea, na kila mwaka hii shule inafanya vizuri na hakuna shida kama hii yenye imetokea.
Evelyn, like many parents of this public school, cannot afford private education for their children. For them, all they can do now is protest until someone listens.
The national selections have been done, and we are wondering, where are we? Because other people have got schools, other schools have been selected, they are going to join national schools. But us, we are nowhere.
Upon hearing of the matter, Paul Wasanga of the Kenya National Examination Council urged parents and pupils of Kibos Primary School to keep calm. Speaking to KTN on phone, Wasanga said the technical issue will be looked into and those who qualify to go to national schools will be listed for the second selection, adding that the issue will be fixed by then. In last year's Kenya Certificate of Primary Education examinations, the school that had 96 candidates emerged 4th best in the district with a mean grade of 299 and 14 qualifying for national schools. Catherine Omwanto, KTN.
Now, do you believe in exorcism? Even if you don't, would you believe your own eyes if you saw an exorcist remove various hardware like knives, coins, or even seashells from one's body? KTN filmed this one-of-a-kind drama in Nairobi's Ngomongo area where a woman is alleged to have bewitched her former employee. Take a look.
It all started in the morning when a concerned mother brought her son to his former employer. The purpose of their visit startled hundreds of passers-by who were then curious. Joseph was the center of attention. Sweating profusely, stiff-necked and unable to utter a word, he stood in the middle of the crowd taking in all the blame, questions and insults. About a month ago, the motorbike Joseph had been hired to operate was said to have been stolen from him by unknown persons. During the incident, he was injured in the eye. Weeks later, his mother realized Joseph was acting strange and was having a difficult time moving his limbs.
Damu imetolewa, hakuna ugonjwa. Sasa ilikuwa ni juzi, nikakuja kwa huyu mama. Nikaongea na yeye kama mama mwenzangu. Nikasema Joseph anagonjeka na hajaona mabadiliko. Juu amejaribu kupimwa kila kitu, hakuna ugonjwa. Lakini shida ni ile yenye huyu mama aliniambia ati yeye huyu mtoto alimkosea sana.
However, Joseph's neighbors and friends had a different opinion, claiming that Joseph had been bewitched by his former employer.
Baba yake alikuja jana akasema ugonjwa hakuna, imepima kila kitu hakuna ugonjwa, lakini Joseph ana behave kama mtu mwanazimu au kubehave kama mtu amerogwa. Sasa ile kitu tunajaribu kujifanya kwake kumoji kwake, akubali kama ameiba. Sisi tumchangie, turudishie mwenye pikipiki yake. Hiyo tu.
Mama ndio mchana na jema na
Before matters went out of hand, the men in blue came to the rescue of Joseph's former employer. Meanwhile, Joseph was carried into the police vehicle and then they proceeded to the station. At the Kariobangi police station, Joseph's employer took refuge at the OCS's office. Here she told her side of the story.
Mimi sijamuroga, hata sijui urogi ni nini. Pikipiki alikuwa naye na alinyang'anywa. Na vile alinyang'anywa hata sikukuwa kinyang'anywa. Nasikia? Nilipigiwa tu simu nikaambiwa amenyang'anywa pikipiki. Na vile nilikuja kweli nikapata alinyang'anywa pikipiki na akakuja. Nikamuuliza, wewe ulienda huko kufanya nini usiku? Akaniambia yeye hakuenda, hakuko usiku sana. Nikamwambia basi kama umeibiwa na hata ingine iliibiwa hapa ya kijana, ni sawa, tutafanya nini? Mimi naona wanataka kuniharibia biashara, njoo kuna makosa niko nayo.
Outside, Joseph and his family were still deliberating on what to do.
We then proceeded to Lejo Maria, where the family believes that the only solution is to pray for the boy to save him from his situation.
A few kilometers from the police station was the Prophet's home in Ngomongo area in Kariobangi North. The Prophet is widely known in the area for a series of exorcism cases and he has commanded a large following. Inside his house, the exorcism process began. Joseph's uncle was asked to support him while his mother was holding the candles. At this point, silence was observed and the Prophet got into his work. The situation got more dramatic as the Prophet decided to use fire as part of his exorcism. Soon the process was over and the Prophet picked up the items that he had claimed came from Joseph's body. Strands of hair, a nail, seashells and coins.
Hizi vitu zote inamaanisha na ile kiganga inafanya kazi sana. Kwa hivyo vile alikuwa ameleta huyu mgonjwa hapa, nikaanza tu kufanya maombi. Unanionyesha hizi kitu ni urogi. Hiyo sio ya binadamu, sio ya Shetani, lakini ni ya binadamu ambaye amekurusha hizi vitu kwa mwili yake.
Outside, Joseph's colleagues were contributing money for the prophet to show appreciation for his services. When Joseph came into this room, he could barely walk or move his limbs, but as it turns out, thanks to Prophet Jaleh, Joseph can now stand. However, it still remains a mystery on whether it was a case of witchcraft or not. All that residents of Ngomongo want is for security levels to be heightened. Ian Wafula, KTN.
Let's take you to the South Sudan crisis now, and reports from Juba indicate that the South Sudanese government said their troops have recaptured the town of Bor, which was one of the first to be attacked by rebel forces when the fighting began. Meanwhile, one of the most resilient humanitarian organizations in the world, Doctors Without Borders, have shut their operations in the key oil town of Malakal. This follows looting that occurred at its compound, where several aid workers were threatened by armed fighters. Here's Najma Ismail with the details.
With thousands of casualties reported daily in South Sudan due to the ongoing brutal fighting, many are now going without the desperately needed medical care after the international medical humanitarian organizations Doctors Without Borders, or MSF, suspended activities in Malakal following the looting of its compound yesterday.
People onto our compound threatened our team. In the evening, this happened again in one of our another compound, where our team again was threatened by armed people. So putting MSF in a situation where actually we cannot work anymore for the moment in Malakal.
Reports from local media in Juba says that one of the terms IGAD once included in the ceasefire talks in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, is that humanitarian organizations should be given unfettered access to victims for assistance. And MSF says the only way they will continue to offer medical care is if their security and safety is guaranteed.
We took the decision this morning to actually suspend for the time being our activities in Malakal Hospital.
Hundreds of people are reported to have fled Malakal due to intense fighting. The number of displaced people seeking shelter at a United Nations base in Malakal has doubled in the past 4 days to an estimated 20,000.
Why is this investigation so soon?
Meanwhile, the United Nations says it is investigating reports of child soldiers being used in the war by the White Army, which is the Nuer tribe's militia fighting in Jonglei State, and the mass war crimes being committed by both sides.
We received allegations of recruitment of child soldiers. We are checking those allegations, and I am happy that government responded positively in sense of condemning any sort of recruiting of child soldiers.
As talks continue in Ethiopia by the East African Regional Bloc IGAD to try and secure a ceasefire, little progress appears to have been made as battles between government troops and rebels raged. The United Nations fears there could be over 100,000 refugees there by the end of January. Najma Ismail, KTN.
Thank you for that, Najma Ismail. Now, as we promised you, our live and exclusive interview with Rebecca Garang starts now, and we've been taking in some of your questions, and a lot of Kenyans are really interested in this, and we want to thank you so much for making the time to be with us here on KTN this evening.
You're welcome.
In your perspective, and having been in the freedom fight for South Sudan for such a long time, up until the point, it was declared an independent state, it is the newest state in the world. What is going on?
Thank you for the opportunity. The situation of Southern Sudan is something which has surprised a lot of people in the world and in the region. The problem, the situation, if I explain here on the TV here, KTN, it can take us hours and hours, but just to go for a short answer was, the situation is democratic, it's not ethnic as people were saying it. It's political, it's a democracy, a process of democracy, which has been absent since the independence of South Sudan. When we were fighting the war, the movement was a democratic movement. And if you compare the situation of the war and the situation we are in the last 2 years of our independence, there's no democracy at all.
Okay. So it is your belief there is no democracy at all right now in South Sudan. Okay, and we'll get to some of those issues in a moment. But the government has said that the violence that we're seeing now is stemming from a foiled coup attempt. You in previous interviews have been keen to say this was not a coup attempt. In your perspective, what was it?
It's not a coup. It was a problem which propped up in the headquarters of the president, which they call Republican Guards headquarters. They were trying to disarm some of the troops which are from Nuer tribe, and that's where the problem cropped up. And then they cook a problem where they will shoot up some guns so that they can push these problems towards those who are arrested, that they are the one who made the coup. And our president has been singing this song of coup since Dr. John died. He has been accusing or pointing fingers to some certain people that these people are making coup. Until the last moment, I didn't believe that he will do something like that, but it had happened, that the group, including Madame Rebecca, were planning a coup, and that's why those people were arrested, but it was not a coup. There's no coup which can start in the headquarters of the president. Secondly, a coup, the politicians, when they make or they plan a coup, they have to do it with the officers, some officers, senior officers, junior officers, and the soldiers.
So how would you explain the violence that we're seeing now in South Sudan? In your view, it was not a coup, and you're saying it was done by Salva Kiir's side to sort of push this to seem like it is you that has started a coup. But how would you explain the violence that we're seeing now in South Sudan?
People of South Sudan have not gotten out of trauma of the first war of 1983 to 2005. And there were a lot of promises that we have done or we have made during the struggle that we will deliver. And we did not. We did not deliver. And the expectation was very high. People were expecting that we will do a lot of things. Social service delivery, security. Like for example, if you go to Juba now, there's no good hospital. All the treatments are being done here for those who can afford to come to East Africa. And the majority of people cannot afford to come to East Africa. There are no schooling. If you go to Juba now, there is no power source in Juba. All these things, the expectation was very high. So those who did not get are very unhappy, or I could say that they are very bitter.
Do you think it was spontaneous or planned?
I don't think it was planned.
Okay, all right. And even as we discuss what is going on there at the moment, we're hearing reports of a ceasefire. What are your thoughts on what's happening with the talks in Addis Ababa? And we've heard of some of the conditions that are there, but markedly, we do not see the discussion about the release of former cabinet officials. Are you happy with the talks in Addis?
Not really, but if you see, because in a peace negotiation, it's not a win-win situation. It's people make concessions so that people can achieve something, because what we are doing now is a negotiation between Southern Sudanese who are doing this negotiation in Addis Ababa. It's not like the peace negotiation in Naivasha or in Machakos, where we were discussing or negotiating the peace with our former enemies of South Sudan. So the situation of the humanitarian situation in South Sudan is very bad, and all of us are seeing it. What we were demanding was that we did not have confidence that if we put the ceasefire first, then the politicians who are arrested, the group, will be released. There's no confidence. But if the committee in Addis Ababa have seen that with the mediators that this is a necessity, and there will be a guarantee that these people will be released afterwards, because this thing is not in our hand alone. The region is involved. The international also are involved.
All right. Many questions we're getting in from our viewers. First of all, on why you chose to take the side of Dr. Machar in this crisis. And also we had the Foreign Affairs Minister yesterday on our show. We had him on our bulletin, and he said, I'm sure you watched that and you heard the comments he made about Dr. Riek Machar, and that he's a perennial rabble-rouser and is looking for power by any means, and this is something that they expected. What's your reaction to that?
Nobody, I have not taken the side of Dr. Machar. I have not taken side of anybody. We were pushed to that because we were reformists and we are still reformists. We want democracy in Southern Sudan by all means. And we also need the reform in the party. We have to put our constitution of the party right, and even the constitution of the land. What happened is that the constitution of the land is shaped in the size of one person. The same thing with the constitution of the party.
And this person would be?
And not all of us who were the same size. In the case of the party, is a chairperson. In the case of the government, is a president, where most of the powers are given to the president. And the same thing in the party, most of the powers are given to the leader. Like, for example, the seats of the chairperson of the SPLM is not supposed to be contested, and that's the hot seat that everybody is looking at. And then his two deputies will be appointed by him, Secretary General of the party. This is in the constitution. We come to voting system. They say that it will be by show of hand. And in 21st century, how can people do that? They say people of South Sudan are not educated, are illiterate. But we did it during the election, and we also did it secret ballots during the referendum when we were voting. So these are the arguments. And now disagreement came at the primary level. So people have to say the truth, because we need to educate our people to know that the leadership is saying the truth, and when the leadership speak, people will listen. But when we are not saying things correctly, then we mislead the population.
All right, let me take you back to that ceasefire agreement that we're hearing coming out of the Addis talks tonight. And one of the agreements that has been put down is the withdrawal of foreign troops, namely the Ugandan army. And you recently met with President Yoweri Museveni and you discussed what's taking place there. What are your thoughts on that, and what did you discuss with him?
My meeting with President Museveni, it was at the level of family. He's a family friend. He called me a sister-in-law. I call him my brother-in-law. And since my husband died, that's how we have been dealing together. So when we met, I didn't meet him as a president, because if I were to meet him as a president, there were so many things that I would not say.
But then, that's right, but then the Ugandan army is there fighting and, supporting the government of President Salva Kiir, and you are on the other side of that. Would be interesting to know what the talks were about.
Both of us were accusing each other that he was telling me that I have taken side of Dr. Machar. Dr. Machar has betrayed the cause of people of South Sudan in 1991. And also I told him, Mr. President, you took side also. It is both of you, Mr. President, President Salva Kiir, and you, Your Excellency, you are the one who pushed me to that side. And we have two things in common with Dr. Riek. Dr. Riek was first deputy chair of the SPLM. And then also at the same time we were talking about the reform in the SPLM. So these are the two things which brought us together with Dr. Riek. And at the same time, what people fail to understand is that Dr. Riek was contesting for the seat, and I also pledged to contest for the same seat. And I have not known that we have agreed with Dr. Riek that I will support him. We have not done that. Both of us were pushed out by President Salva, but we have not agreed with Mr. Machar will do that. So when I met President Museveni, I brought this thing to his attention, that why did you send your troop to Juba to do what? You're fighting Dr. Riek as a person, or fighting Nuer as a tribe? These things will not come. It will not work. But he said that is something that which was agreed, because they didn't want a total collapse of the new state, the new nation.
And so you asked him to ask his troops to stand down?
Which one?
Yoweri Museveni? Did you ask him to remove his troops from South Sudan?
No comment.
Okay, all right. Finally, as we go into this, because you carry the legacy of Dr. John Garang, many know him as a peace-loving individual. What do you think he would think about the crisis in South Sudan, about the violence that has erupted, about the methods that have been used, about what Dr. Riek Machar is doing right now?
I don't see that the blame will go to only one person, but we have mismanaged ourselves. We have mismanaged the South since the formation of government of South Sudan and the government of Republic of South Sudan. We have not delivered. We have not delivered to our people. We have mismanaged the country. And when Dr. John comes today, he will blame all of us that we have not managed the country properly, because what happened that he has prepared a lot of things, a lot of documents that we were supposed to follow the documents of the SPLM. The vision can come from one person, but the vision is the vision of the party. So Dr. John did not take anything with him. It was us who was supposed to carry on. But we left the path that the SPLM for 21 years was taking. We took a shortcut so that we can go to the government.
So you say he will blame all of you?
He will blame all of us, because what happened is that we rushed to the positions, starting giving ourselves names that, oh, Your Excellency, creating the gaps. There are lower people, and then the excellency is up there, which is not correct.
So then, and our very last question is, what next for South Sudan? If then you say you all are to blame for the crisis that we're seeing, for mismanaging things, as you say, has happened in South Sudan, what then happens now with the ceasefire agreement that we've heard? And what, in your view, would take South Sudan to where Dr. John Garang would be happy?
It's for us to admit that we had made a mistake, for our people to hear. But not.
And you would be willing to do that as well?
Myself?
Yes.
Yes.
Dr. Machar as well?
I'm a human being. I'm a God-fearing person, and if I hide anything, I know God knows my heart. If I made any mistake at all, I will be willing to tell my people we are very sorry for what had happened, and then we go back so that we can go to the issues, to deal with issues now. Because what happened is that we left the issues, but we are dealing with individuals. For example, we are dealing with Dr. Machar, and the whole world is talking about Dr. Machar, and people are not talking about the people of Southern Sudan. The issues why there were differences. SPLM has been mismanaged, SPLM has been left. We have not been using the vehicle of SPLM, which can take us really very far. And our, not only Dr. John, who would be amazed of what we have done, but the people who have died. Many people who have died knowing that there is only SPLM who can take people across the river.
All right, so everybody has a role to play.
Yes, all of us.
What role do you see yourself playing in the future? Would you want to become president of South Sudan one day?
I've been always saying that I'll cross that bridge when I reach it. I'm always optimistic, but in that case, because who made you president is the people. People bring that power to you, and I believe that seriously. And if the people say that they wanted to bring you down, they will do that, and it happens in our neighboring countries, and you have seen powerful governments have come down because of the people. And I believe in the people. If the people say that, you will lead them, not manage them, but leading them. And nobody will say no. But in my case, I'm not power hungry to say that I want leadership by all means to take the lives of people of South Sudan. What we did during the struggle with my husband is leadership. We led our people during the struggle. But when you see things are going wrong, that's not the way we were fighting. That's not what we promised our people. That's not what we fought for, what we are doing today. Somebody is obliged to say that I wanted to contest for the seats. Because women in Africa are being seen like people who cannot do anything. But we have extra sense, and that we can lead. But I will not say in this case, because of this situation, that I want the leadership of South Sudan. But what we need to do now, what is the situation of the people of South Sudan? Because people comes first. in this case.
All right, and we have to leave it at that for now. Thank you so much for joining us on KTN tonight, and we wish you the best, and all Kenyans are praying for a peaceful resolution of the crisis in South Sudan. We wish you the best. We have been speaking with Rebecca Garang, who is the widow of the late Dr. John Garang in South Sudan, and indeed has played such a key role in the birth of this new nation. And even as they're in a crisis right now, we've been talking about what is going on there and what she feels is the way forward. Let's move to other news this evening. Deputy President William Ruto says the criticism heaped on the Jubilee leadership by county governors and opposition politicians is totally misplaced. Speaking in Vihiga during the Thanksgiving prayers for Vihiga MP Yusuf Chanzu, Ruto claimed that governors were playing sideshows while failing to utilize county funds meant for development. He insists that over 35 billion shillings is lying idle at the central bank, crippling devolution.
We are ready to work with you as the deputy katika county governments. So we are requesting as a county
wafanye halahala, watipange ili watumie pesa hizo, kwa sababu hazifaidi mtu yeyote ikiwa Central Bank. Tunataka hiyo pesa itoke huko iingie kwa county government, wajenge barabara, waweke maji kwa manyumba, waweke dawa kwa mahospitali, tuhakikishe ya kwamba tunabadilisha maisha ya wananchi.
Mimi nataka niwaambie kwamba ukweli wa mambo ni kwamba the two governments must work together. The two governments must work together. Kwa sababu ushuru, revenue, hile ya kitaifa, ukiongeza zaidi unaongeza VAT. Bei ya bidhaa inaenda juu. Kwa county government, tusipozungumza vizuri na tuongeze zile licenses za maduka, na tuongeze cess, na tuongeze ngine, tena sisi kwa county government tunaweka mzigo kwa mgongo ya mwananchi.
Let's stay with matters politics. And the court lawmakers led by their leader Raila Odinga, Kalonzo Musyoka and Moses Wetangula insist that the Jubilee government is taking the county government units for granted. They have also criticized the Jubilee government for what they called institutionalizing marginalization and exclusion of communities from top government positions.
CORD leaders led lawmakers from the affiliate parties to a public rally at Kenyatta Sports Ground in Kisumu. It was here that they took a swipe at the Jubilee government following media reports that home regions of President Uhuru Kenyatta and Deputy President William Ruto have been rewarded by more than half of all senior appointments in government. CORD also repeated its claims that the Jubilee government is not committed to devolution.
Serikali ya Jubilee haiamini ugatuzi. Serikali ya Jubilee ni ya kikabila. They are institutionalizing marginalization and exclusion of communities from government. Wanawanyima magavana pesa, alafu wanasema gavana wafanyi kazi.
The leaders said the Jubilee government has failed to tackle insecurity and crime in most parts of the country. They criticized the police for dismissing what they believe was an attempted assassination on Wetangula along Bagathi Road by concluding Wetangula's car was not shot at.
Wanasema ati ilikuwa ni billboard, nasema hiyo ni upuzi. Mimi niliona na mimi si mwendazimu. Sijakuwa mwendazimu, nimesema wakicheza na Wetangula wataona cha mtemi.
CORD leaders say they will resist any attempts to remove Nairobi Governor Dr. Evans Kidero from office. Kidero and Rachel Shebesh are ready to face off in court after failing to agree on out-of-court settlement for fighting in public.
Kwa mkutano wetu tumeazimia ya kwamba tutasimama kidete na Kidero. Kwa sababu ile wanataka sio ile kofi. Wanataka mtu wao akalie Nairobi na sisi hatutakubali.
Kalonzo urged the electoral body to start registering the youth for the next general elections since CORD was ready to form the next government.
Inawezekanaje 2017 na huku nchi narudishwa nyuma miaka 50 miaka 20. Alafu wanasema Raila na Kalonzo mkitaka atimulipwe retirement benefits mustaafu kwa siasa. Ukiangalia na Raila na Kalonzo watu wa kustaafu.
Earlier, CORD leaders held almost 4 hours closed-door meeting with all governors, senators and women representatives to review the opposition's performance in the past 1 year.
CORD resolves that requisite resources should be allocated to the county government in line with the constitution. To facilitate this, CORD demands enhancements of the revenue threshold allocated to the county government to a minimum of 45% of the most recent audited national revenue.
They called for the quick establishment of the county policing authority to address runaway insecurity. Patrick Amimo, KTN.
Now, one of CORD's member parties, the Orange Democratic Movement, is at a crossroads weeks to its National Delegates Conference to elect new leaders. Members of Parliament from Luo Nyanza are gunning for most of the powerful positions against the backdrop of demands from other members from outside Nyanza to be included in the top leadership. Will it be a rebirth or a succession election in ODM? Samagina brings us that analysis.
Regional balkanization and sense of entitlement are deep undercurrents running within the ODM party ahead of the National Delegates Conference in 6 weeks. While the party is putting on a brave face,
we do not have specific seats reserved for any region. Every member, regardless of the region, has equal chance and equal opportunity if only he can convince the delegates to serve the party in any position.
Cracks in the Orange House and regionalization of the party are quite evident. Luo Nyanza leaders, after a strategy meeting, have resolved to fasten their grip on the Orange Party, demanding for the two most powerful positions. That is the party leader position and the Secretary General's position. At least 4 of those eyeing the SG seat are drawn from Luo Nyanza and will square it out with the Budalangi MP Yababu Namwamba and Senators Agnes Zani and Elizabeth Ongoro.
Look at the Wiper Party. The party leader is from Ukambani. The Secretary General of the party is from Ukambani. That does not raise eyebrows. Let's look at Ford Kenya, which is a strong coalition partner. The party leader of Ford Kenya is from the western part of Kenya. The Secretary General of the party is also from the western part of Kenya. That doesn't raise eyebrows. But when it comes to Luo Nyanza, when the party leader and Secretary General want to come from the same part, that now is national politics. And
people are panicking for nothing. When we get to the election day, everyone will have a say with your vote.
Battle lines are drawn between the Nyanza and Western regions, where ODM is the dominant party. Amassing 15 seats out of a possible 37 parliamentary seats in the Western region and 26 out of 33 seats in Nyanza, both regions are projecting a sense of ownership of the party, and no one is letting their guards down.
The majority of votes we got in Western, it was because of Ababu Namwamba. The majority votes we got in Nyanza, it's because of Ababu Namwamba with his reloaded team.
The position that Western Kenya has determined to be their priority is the position of Secretary General, and their candidate is Ababu Namwamba. That's the position.
In terms of party politics, the head and the heart must go together. And the head of any political party is the party leadership, and the heart is the Secretary General. If we do not work in harmony and synchronize the various synergies, then I think it's really difficult.
The jostling between Western and Nyanza has occasioned the stepping in of the party's top leadership to dissuade some of its members to withdraw their candidature. A strategy to keep the party's fabric intact at the aftermath of the February elections.
There is a sense of insecurity among politicians from Nyanza if they don't get the most powerful position. If this rebirth process is not handled carefully and strategically, then it may lead to the death of both the mother and the child. That the growth that is anticipated may not take root, and the initial support that was there may glaciate.
At least 3,000 delegates will participate in the National Delegates Convention to elect the party's new officials. Samugina, KTN, Nairobi.
Now let's go to politics of a different kind, and it's about ownership, and of one person in particular. We're talking about Lupita Nyong'o tonight. Now the country is abuzz with excitement, as in the United States the award season has begun. The reason is Lupita Nyong'o, of course, an actress who has become a household name across the country and indeed across the world as well. She is also Kisumu Senator Professor Anyang' Nyong'o's daughter. She was born outside the country, a factor that has sparked fierce wars as Kenyans stake their claim to her.
The Academy Awards, better known as the Oscars. Millions are expected to tune in, and for the first time ever, the event is generating a buzz across the country. And this is why Lupita Nyong'o has been nominated for her role in the Hollywood movie 12 Years a Slave. Fascinated by the fact that one of their own has made a successful debut on the world stage, Kenyans have scrambled to learn everything they can about the rising star.
The daughter of the former minister and currently the senator for Kisumu, and she's now competing in Hollywood, and the newspaper today they were saying that she has gone better in contest, so that's what I know.
I know she's an actress. Yeah, she's 31 years and she's really making it.
As the world began to take an interest in Lupita, questions arose as to her nationality. It emerges that Lupita was born in Mexico, where her parents were in exile. Lupita is actually a form of the Mexican name Guadalupe. Her father is, however, the Kisumu senator, Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, and she told an American talk show host that her family returned to Kenya before she was a year old.
Lupita! Canadian. There we go.
This little tidbit, fueled by foreign reports, one of which specifically referred to Lupita as a Mexican actress, have led to heated discussions online, begging the question, who owns Lupita?
They say it on mainstream media that she's Mexican, and we know she's Kenyan. I mean, we understand she's Kenyan because we know her dad, even her second name, so it's a little bit confused.
I think she has dual citizenship, if I'm not wrong.
This is not the first time that Kenya has discovered a link with a famous person only to be forced to back down. In 2008, Barack Obama became the first black president of the United States. Barack's father was a Kenyan who studied in America, married and had a child, and then separated from Barack's mother. Kenya staked its claim but did not have much to go on. 5 years later, in 2013, Namibian Big Brother Africa winner Delish Matthews was reunited with her father, a Kenyan Borana who fell in love with a Namibian while on a peacekeeping mission over 2 decades ago. Until the program aired, he had never seen his daughter. Here too, Kenya would find it had little claim, but this time Kenyans are not ceding ground.
You know why? I got this from Mistress Shaw.
Celebrating when Lupita referred to Kenya as home in an interview. In the country, the general consensus seems to be that since Lupita was born to Kenyan parents and grew up in Kenya, regardless of what her passport says, should she win the Academy Award, Lupita will thereafter be known as the first Kenyan ever to bag the award.
As a Kenyan, we are proud for her. Lupita, keep on going, keep on going.
Lupita Nyong'o straddles many worlds, from beginnings in Mexico and Kenya and finally to the world stage in Hollywood. Yet regardless of her nationality, she has definitely inspired several young people dreaming of success. Wilkis Nyabwa, KTN in Nairobi.
Right. Who owns her indeed? This sounds like some intellectual property, but she is. But listen, we gave Namibia Delish. We've even surrendered Barack Obama to the United States, but I think Lupita Nyong'o, we're going to keep her. I think we stake our claim on that one. I want to take a short break right now on KTN Weekend Prime, but before we do that, I just want to take some of your thoughts on the exclusive live interview we had with Mrs. Rebecca Garang in just a short while ago regarding the crisis in South Sudan. Abbas Ochula, you say, good interview. I'm inspired by Mrs. Garang. She brought out the real issues of South Sudan. DJ Migingo, you say she needs to play a mediatory role between the two sides, or rather mediation role between the two sides. She is the mother of South Sudan. Keep your comments coming in on just what you think needs to be done to put South Sudan back on the right path. We want to take a short break right now, but here's what we have coming up for you after the break. Slum areas get a head start with revolutionary mobile learning technology.
Requisite resources should be allocated to the county government in line with the Constitution. In this regard, institutions that were previously executing functions which are now by law within the ambit of the county government should now surrender those functions to the county government.
You are watching KTN Weekend Prime.
And we thank you for staying with us on KTN Weekend Prime this evening. A new technology is simplifying the lives of pupils and their parents in selected slum areas of Kenya. Pupils are able to access not only revision material on mobile phones, but also remote assistance from teachers. Here is that story.
This is Kibera, one of the slums in Kenya, where pupils are gradually adopting a learning and revision technology so revolutionary yet so simple that it would shame those grand digital mega plans the government is working on. Meet Mary, a standard 8 pupil preparing for her KCP at the end of the year. At a cost of only 30 shillings a month, Mary is able to study to interact with the teachers using her mother's mobile phone right from home.
Anajua kazi yake vizuri, akiingia anaenda kuchota maji ni kuoga na amekaa kwa mesa. Ako busy sana na vitu zake za shule. Mara anataka simu revise hizo vitu.
For Mary and many pupils like her, the digital education technology has cut out the need to walk long distances in search of a library where she could get the space and the book to help her revise. It has also drastically reduced the need to go for remedial tuition after school or with privately hired tutors.
Napenda hii kasi ya shule, kasi ya kusoma. Afadhali umnyime kitu lakini usimnyime kitabu.
The system works with all kinds of mobile phones, and learners register their personal details like name, gender, class, and the location of the school they are. The system works in line with the recent school curriculum set in the Kenyan 844 education system. By dialing *291#, the system comes up with a set of topics under the subjects that the students learn at school.
It provides educational content that is in line with the local curriculum that students can interact with through simple mobile technology.
Utafinya nambari *291#. Kisha utaweza kuchukua topiki ambayo unataka na subject ambayo unataka.
Mary is determined to pursue her career of being a doctor. She walks back home in the evening from Milimani Primary School and finds a heap of chores to do, considering that she's the first child in the family of 4. Despite all, she's still determined to achieve her dreams. She explains that her family cannot afford to get her all the facilities needed at school and opted for the affordable way of using the mobile phone to do her revisions after school.
Imenisaidia, nime-improve na alama 10. Mimi mwenyewe niliamua nataka kupita kwa mtihani, ndiposa nikaenda nikajiunga na klabu hiyo.
Inamsaidia juu tangu aanze kutumia hiyo simu nimesave kidogo juu kununua past papers, time ya kupoteza kwenda shule kuuliza ABCD, sasa ninauliza tu through simu.
In 2002, when the government introduced free primary education in an effort to provide access to education in all parts of the country, thousands of pupils crowded in classrooms scrambled for some attention from teachers with nearly impossible workloads. And now, as the government works on going digital with the curriculum and textbooks, Mary, together with others using this technology, say they believe they have a head start.
It enables the learner to acquire efficient response to the kind of a topic that has been elaborated.
2 years ago, one of the top students in Chandaria Primary School credited part of his success to this technology that allowed him to revise anywhere, anytime using the mobile phone.
It has enabled her to score good marks in KCPA because she used to revise using that gadget, and it has enabled also other learners who are not able to do well in other areas to access and also do well in everything that they planned for. By 2015, the world will go digital, and the learners should be able now to start going digital. And I think we are moving to the era whereby I think even the teachers, they themselves will not be able to use the chalkboard.
The digital learners technology is being rolled out to benefit only learners in slum areas and is targeting 50 million learners across the African continent.
Right, on that digital note, we want to take another short commercial break, but we will be right back with lots more. Please do stay with us. So, who has been invited to Michelle Obama's birthday party?
You are watching KTN Weekend Prime.
It's now time for sports news. 3,000 meters world indoor champion Hellen Obiri and Leonard Oloitiptip braved the scorching sun early Saturday morning to emerge the 2014 Kenya Defence Forces cross-country champions. The two will be among other athletes who will represent the Defence Forces at the National Cross-Country Championships in Nairobi next month.
Unlike other police cross-country championships where most winners were using the event as a build-up for the marathon season, winners at the Defence Forces cross-country championships are keen on making the team to the Africa cross-country championships in Kampala, Uganda. And as it is the norm, the women 8 kilometers race was first to take off with Gladys Cherono, the double All-African Games champion, while military Games champion Lineth Chepkirui, Sharon Cherop and double Commonwealth champion Nancy Jebet Lagat on the starting lineup. It was not to be a case of leading from the start, as the elite athletes kept exchanging leads before world indoor champion Hellen Obiri ran away from the pack to become the new defense cross-country champion in 26 minutes 40.1 seconds.
Bado nikipata hiyo nafasi nitakimbia national cross country, nenda Uganda, ina build up mwili na kwa shape mzuri.
22 male athletes then later lined up gunning for the top honors. A leading pack of 12 athletes was soon created and shortly dropped to just 7 athletes that included former world cross-country champion Joseph Obuya, all hoping to make the Africa cross-country team, especially after a stint of poor performances by the Forces athletes who failed to get a slot in the world cross-country team for the first time last year. Leonard Oloitiptip, the winner of the day, will spearhead the mission. The Forces cross-country championships was, however, not just for the young blood, as the legendary Sally Brasosio proved with her 14th finish.
It is just a number. I like calling myself, I'm under 18. But if I multiply my 18 times 2, you get my age.
Apart from last year, the Kenya Defence Forces has produced all the Kenyan winners at the World Cross Country Championships, dating back to the likes of Paul Tergat and Joseph Obuya. However, after a few years of mixed results, the force is in a redemption path. Lynn Washira, KTN Sports.
To some rugby news now, Kenya Cup debutants Eldoret RFC continued with their wanting performance, succumbing to an 84-6 defeat against Homeboys, as defending champions Top Fry Nakuru secured another victory against Total Nondis, while Strathmore University dominated at home against Lunch Bar Queens.
With the start of their anthem, Lunch Bar Queens were optimistic of taking charge of the match against the resilient Strathmore University, but found the students a hard nut to crack. Strathmore Leo started an attacking spree, and their efforts soon paid dividends, with Ian Ondola giving them a 6-0 lead with his double well-taken penalties. Geoffrey Gidege then dummied and set Tony Onyango, who piled more miseries on the Queens. Ondola then converted thereafter. Sydney Ashioya combined well with Kevin Keegan to find a replay for Queens, but their conversion kick was poorly taken. Before the last whistle, Mark Shikuku combined with a dongo and touchdown, and Ondola converted to seal an important 2010 victory. In another encounter, defending champions Nakuru RFC continued their dominance by humbling visitors Total Nondis 19-8. Victor Shikoli, Javan Murai and Kelvin Otieno on Nakuru list of scorers, with Wesley Ochieng getting one for the visitors, while Javan ensuring his conversion was accurate. The victory keeps Nakuru 100% record on course. In a tightly contested affair, Big Boys Mwamba RFC succumbed to a 22-24 defeat against KCB in a match played at the University of Nairobi grounds. Kisumu RFC got a 51-3 thrashing in the hands of Western Bulls in front of their home fans in Kisumu, while Kenyatta University Black Blood went down 14-22 against Impala. As expected, the highest score of the weekend was 84-6, thrashing of Eldoret RFC by rejuvenated homeboy side. Debutants Eldoret RFC are having a hard time playing with the big guns, and they ought to up their play if they are to play in the next series. Moses Wahisi at Nairobi University.
To end this bulletin on a happy note with that story, but we do indeed need to bring you up to date with what we're just receiving now, and many will know him. His name is Komla Dumor. He is the presenter at BBC, he's a news anchor at BBC based in London, and the presenter of BBC Africa. We're getting news tonight that he has died aged 41 suddenly in his home in London. Details just coming out of that. We're not sure exactly of the cause of death, but we can announce tonight Komla Dumor, a world-renowned journalist and presenter of BBC Africa based in BBC headquarters in London, has passed on tonight aged 41. We wish his family condolences at this time, and may he rest in peace, and do keep it KTN. We'll continue to update you on that one as the world of journalists mourns the death of one of their own, and indeed the world over. All right, on that note, we end our bulletin tonight. Thank you very much for watching, and thank you for your feedback regarding all our stories and indeed our interview tonight. It will be posted on our website. That's www.ktnkenya.tv in just a short while. You can catch it there if you missed it. Thank you for your feedback. Have a good night. My name is Yvonne Okwara. We'll see you tomorrow.